Hi, everybody, and welcome to Sleepy Science, the podcast where we sneak into the strange corners of your biology just as you're sneaking under the covers. Tonight, the journey starts in your bathroom mirror. Picture yourself standing there brushing your teeth, the hum of your electric toothbrush barely masking the quiet tick of time. Your mouth is full of minty foam. You spit, you rinse, you sigh. But little do you know, your saliva is already doing something weird. See, it's not just toothpaste battling the bad guys in your mouth tonight. Saliva, that underappreciated goop you mostly ignore unless it lands on your pillow, is changing. Right now, thickening, shifting, upgrading. It's preparing for the overnight shift. Because sleep is when your teeth are most vulnerable. And guess what? You probably won't survive this evolutionary design flaw if your spit doesn't show up ready for battle. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And tell me, where in the world are you listening from and what time is it right now? Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You finish brushing. The light above the sink flickers slightly, the kind of twitch that makes you question if your apartment was built after the Cold War. As you turn off the faucet, your body is already winding down. Your heart rate dips. Your eyelids feel that gravity tug. But inside your mouth, an army is assembling. By the time you're walking to your bed, your saliva is no longer the daytime multitasker it usually is. Flushing food bits, tasting sour candy, helping you swallow mid-argument. It's already transforming. It knows the rules change at night. Your brain signals the pineal gland, melatonin trickles into your bloodstream, and your circadian rhythm gets the official night mode memo. And somehow your salivary glands, particularly the parotid and submandibular ones, respond to that same clock. Creepy? Maybe. Elegant? Definitely. Back in ancient Greece, Hippocrates wrote about the four humors: blood, yellow bile, black bile, and phlegm. Saliva didn't make the cut, but maybe it should have, because this seemingly passive liquid is about to pull some moves worthy of a late-night spy film. Think of it as a blend of lotion, disinfectant, cement filler, and Netflix subscription, because without it, your teeth would be in serious trouble while you sleep. Historians still argue whether saliva evolved more for digestion or oral defense, but tonight we're leaning hard into team defense. While you snooze, you stop swallowing as often. Your mouth stays slightly open if you're a mouth breather, no judgment. The environment becomes dry and dark, ideal for cavity-causing bacteria. And here's where saliva steps in like a tired but determined security guard on night patrol. By the time you're under the covers, your brain is shifting into alpha waves and your saliva is settling into its second identity. Gone is the gush of flow you had while eating lunch. This is the slow, moody version. Thickened, concentrated, purposeful. You won't notice it, of course, but it's happening. A quirky side note: in medieval Europe, spitting in public was so common, there were actual spit corners in homes and churches. Imagine trying to pray with someone and expectorating next to you. In contrast, modern sleep science barely gives saliva its due, but here we are, changing that one whispered word at a time. Your mouth, by the way, contains over 700 species of bacteria. Most are harmless, some are even helpful. But a few Streptococcus mutans, for instance, are tiny sugar junkies. They feast on leftover carbs from your bedtime snack and excrete acid. That acid, it eats away at enamel. Slowly, silently, but your saliva sees this coming. It begins releasing bicarbonate ions to buffer the pH. It bathes your teeth in minerals like calcium and phosphate. It sticks to enamel with mucins, those slippery proteins that act like biological glue and waterbed liner all in one. Even the act of brushing, as much as it helps, doesn't sterilize your mouth. It just sets the stage. The real overnight hero is the stuff sloshing around invisibly in your cheeks. Scientists discovered that saliva contains antimicrobial peptides, tiny proteins that puncture bacterial membranes. And here's the fun bit: some of these increase in concentration before and during sleep. Like your mouth is setting up an automated turret system just in case. Weirdly, during the 1960s space race, NASA studied how stress and circadian rhythms altered astronaut saliva. Turns out, even floating around Earth, your spit knows when it's bedtime. Wild. Back in your bedroom, you fluff your pillow and turn to your side. Unconsciously, your lips part just slightly. Air whispers in. The evaporation from your breath begins drying the front of your teeth. If your saliva didn't thicken, didn't ramp up its protective proteins, your enamel would be toast by Tuesday. This change isn't just chemical, it's also structural. Nighttime saliva becomes more mucosal with a higher content of glycoproteins. It sticks around longer, moves slower. Think of it like switching from a fountain to molasses. Less flashy, more lasting. And here's a fringe tidbit to chew on. Some Ayurvedic texts claim that swallowing morning saliva could heal ailments from skin issues to digestive problems. While modern science hasn't gone full woo-woo on that front, we do know that your overnight saliva is a very different beast from your daytime drool. By now, your heart rate has dipped. Your limbs are still. Your brain may already be painting dreamscapes behind your eyelids. But in your mouth, that thickened, sleepy, sweet saliva is clinging to the enamel, buffering the acid, patching the cracks, whispering, "Don't worry, I got this." And it does, until you wake and spit and brush and reset the cycle again. You're already deep into the sheets now, that soft thrum of the fan nudging you further from the waking world. But just before your body fully powers down, something oddly heroic is happening inside your mouth. You'd never guess it. There's no flashing red light, no swelling of music, but your saliva is quietly stepping into the role of nocturnal guardian. During the day, your immune system works in tandem with every part of your body. It's on call, caffeinated, answering every minor insult with microscopic overkill. But at night, your system like you gets a little drowsy. T cells, macrophages, all those big immune players, they clock out early. Your core temperature drops, your breathing slows, and your defenses, well, let's say they put on a bathrobe and answer the door a little slower. But not your saliva. It gets the message loud and clear. You're on your own tonight, buddy. And it does what any underpaid, overworked night shift worker does. It doubles up. Your nighttime saliva is richer in protective molecules than daytime saliva. It leans in. It's thicker, more mucus-like, packed with immune factors that keep your oral bacteria in check, while the rest of you is dreaming about accidentally showing up to work naked. Historically, people thought of nighttime as when danger lurked. Monsters, spirits, ghosts who asked just one too many questions. But the real horror story? What's happening to your teeth without this shift in your saliva? Imagine this. You've had a long day, maybe eaten a few snacks you weren't supposed to, some crackers here, a bit of chocolate there. And though you brushed, tiny food remnants cling to your molars like sugar-coated barnacles. The bacteria sense it. Streptococcus mutans and lactobacillus are already throwing a rave on your gums, pumping out acid with all the subtlety of a teenager discovering energy drinks. Without your saliva reinforcing the barriers, your enamel would be like an old castle wall under siege. And yet, there it is. This unglamorous fluid, mostly water, yes, but also layered with glycoproteins, enzymes, and antibodies, is padding around like a sleepy watchman with a flashlight, kicking out microbial party crashers. Here's the kicker. Saliva composition doesn't just shift based on time of day, it also reacts to your emotions, hydration levels, and even your sleep quality. Yep, the better you sleep, the better your saliva works. So if you're lying in bed right now feeling smug about your 8 hours, go ahead, you earned it. Now here comes the historical fun fact. In 1872, a curious dentist named Dr. Norman Kingsley claimed that children who snored often had poorly formed jaws due to chronic mouth breathing and suggested they might be spit deficient during the twilight hours. That was his phrasing, spit deficient. And while he didn't have the science quite nailed, he wasn't totally off. Modern research shows that mouth breathing during sleep reduces saliva distribution and increases cavity risk. Go figure. Meanwhile, modern studies using something called salivary proteomics have identified over 1,000 proteins in saliva, many of which ramp up their activity at night. These include lactoferrin, which sequesters iron to starve bacteria, immunoglobulin A, which tags microbes for destruction, and statharin, which prevents the formation of calcium phosphate crystals in all the wrong places. It's as if your body says, look, I'm too tired to deal with this, and hands the keys to your salivary glands, and they deliver. There's also an open scholarly debate about whether this nighttime uptick in immune function is evolutionary or adaptive. Did humans evolve this pattern because we sleep in caves where bugs crawl in our mouths? High nightmare fuel. Or did our bodies learn to use the quiet hours to multitask repairs? No one knows for sure, but those thickened secretions at 2 a.m. suggest a little of both. Oh, and here's a fun fringe tidbit for your mental collection. In traditional Chinese medicine, the concept of jin-ye refers to body fluids, including saliva. Nighttime saliva is thought to be more yin, more nourishing, and restorative. Some ancient texts even claim that swallowing your first spit of the morning returns essence to the kidneys. Again, don't try this at brunch, but it's interesting, isn't it? So as you sink deeper into your mattress, just know your parotid, sublingual, and submandibular glands aren't snoozing. They're working overtime, mixing up a slow-release potion to fight gum disease, enamel erosion, and even halitosis. Think of them like bartenders at a speakeasy only instead of cocktails. They're pouring out secretions rich with protective peptides. Let's break this down a bit more. The submandibular glands produce most of the nighttime saliva, and their secretions are thicker than the watery stuff your parotids handle during meals. These thicker secretions mean better coating, longer retention, and more intimate contact with enamel surfaces. Yes, you're getting spooned by your own spit. Comforting, isn't it? But here's the kicker. You're also producing less of it overall. Daytime saliva production is about 0.3–0.4 ml per minute. At night, it drops to as little as 0.1 ml min or even lower. You might be wondering, how does less saliva help? That's the magic. Less volume, but more potency. Think concentrated soup. Less sloshing, more sticking. Your mouth isn't flushing anymore. It's laying down a rich, sticky blanket of chemical defenders. As you breathe softly, almost imperceptibly, your saliva continues its lonely vigil. Slow, quiet, determined. It clings to the teeth you've had since middle school, or their replacements, no shame, knowing that no one else is coming to help. So the next time you lie in bed thinking nothing's happening inside your body, remember this: your immune system may be dreaming, but your saliva never sleeps. Now your breath is slowing into that even, rhythmic tide. You're suspended in the soft half-light between dreams and deep sleep, and your body is draping a biological quilt over every system, pulling things inward, conserving energy. But your mouth, oh no, your mouth is in full lockdown mode. And the saliva? It's not just trickling, it's getting smarter. By now, your spit has undergone a quiet transformation. It's no longer the breezy, bubbly secretion that helps you chew and gab and lick peanut butter off a spoon. This version is dense, sticky, and deliberate. Why? Because it's been upgraded with a cocktail of protective molecules, turning every drop into something like biological Velcro grabbing onto tooth surfaces, clinging to enamel, and keeping troublemakers from settling in. And one of the biggest players in this night crew is a class of proteins called mucins. Mucins are those weird, stringy, jelly-like components you'd probably gag at if you ever saw them outside of context. But right now, you are covered in them from your cheeks to your gums to the tiny crevices between your molars. These mucins act like a soft armor. They form a sticky matrix that traps bacteria, blocks acid, and holds onto all the other helpful proteins like antibodies and enzymes. It's a bit like building a slow-release film over your teeth. If daytime saliva is the polite dinner guest, quick, conversational, full of useful enzymes, nighttime saliva is the security guard who tapes foam to the windows before a storm. Here's the odd thing. Scientists still don't fully understand how mucins interact with oral bacteria. Some studies suggest they can directly disarm pathogens, while others show they merely prevent bacteria from sticking to enamel. Historians still argue whether this function evolved primarily for digestion, lubrication, or immune defense. But in the shadows of sleep, they're clearly working overtime to keep the cavity causers at bay. Now, if you've ever woken up with your lips glued together, congratulations. That's mucins doing their job. Your mouth may feel like someone left cotton balls in it, but that tackiness, that's the mucosal magic forming a slow dissolving blanket between your enamel and the microbial world. And here's a lovely fringe fact to tuck into your dreams. In the 1930s, some dentists believed that the consistency of one's saliva could predict moral character. Yes, you heard that right. Thin, watery saliva, weak will. Thick, ropey saliva, decisive and powerful. By that logic, you're currently a titan of personal discipline. Sleep tight, O molasses mouth monarch. But really, there's science here. Mucins, in particular MUC5B and MUC7, are key players in oral health. MUC5B is the one that gives saliva its signature slipperiness, helping to coat your mouth evenly. MU7, on the other hand, is known to bind to certain strains of Streptococcus mutans, neutralizing them before they even get a foothold. That's the bacterial version of being tackled before entering the party. Meanwhile, those other helpful agents like lysozyme and lactoferrin aren't just floating around aimlessly. They're trapped and organized by mucins, guided toward trouble spots, and anchored where they'll do the most good. Imagine an elite task force held in sticky suspension, ready to act the moment some rogue microbe starts an acid rave. The texture of nighttime saliva is important too. Its viscosity isn't just for coating, it's also for staying. During the day, your mouth is like a flowing stream. At night, it becomes more like a pin, calm, slow, still. That lack of turbulence allows your body to create more targeted defenses. It's like switching from a leaf blower to a pressure washerless mess, more impact. And here's something cool. In ancient Egyptian medicine, saliva was believed to be the sweat of the mouth, and priests would inspect its consistency to diagnose disease. Not entirely scientific, but surprisingly intuitive. Modern oral health tests now analyze saliva viscosity and mucin concentration as indicators of overall wellness. So yeah, the Egyptians were onto something, minus the crocodile dung toothpaste. You may not realize it, but your entire oral ecosystem is recalibrating as you sleep. The thickened saliva doesn't just protect your teeth, it balances your entire oral microbiome. Bacteria that thrive in sugary, acidic environments, slowed down. Protective species like Streptococcus salivarius, encouraged to flourish. It's the ultimate community management project, and you're the blissfully unconscious mayor. And if you've ever had one of those weird dreams where your teeth fall out, well, ironically, the biological opposite is happening in real life. While you dream of molars disintegrating in your hands, your spit is hard at work stabilizing your enamel, trapping food particles, and sticking antibacterial agents to your gum line like bumper stickers. So while your arms and legs twitch into REM sleep, and your brain begins to fold today's memories into tomorrow's stories, your mouth is quietly hunkering down. The mucins thicken, the enzymes settle into formation, and your teeth, those hard-working little fossils, are cradled in a gooey, glistening force field. But even as your body slows, don't think for a second that the spit gets lazy. Nope, it goes full defense mode with a texture that could double as alien slime in a 1980s horror film. And thank goodness for that, because without this chemical cocoon, you'd be waking up to enamel erosion, inflamed gums, and breath that could strip paint. So the next time you wake up with a mouth that feels like it's been coated in invisible cling wrap, try not to grimace. That sensation is the last residue of your personal night guard, the unsung salivary soldier that pulled a graveyard shift to keep your smile intact. Your limbs are still now. The blanket has barely shifted in the last 20 minutes, and your breath is quieter than your phone on Do Not Disturb. Inside your mouth, though, the party continues, but it's more of a secret council now. And guess who's arriving fashionably late to this sleepover? Your hormones. Yes, your body runs a chemical schedule tighter than a K-pop tour, and at night, melatonin steps into the spotlight. You think of it as the sleep hormone, the drowsy signal that dims the lights on your brain and begins the bedtime cascade. But melatonin doesn't just lull you into unconsciousness. It also talks quietly and biochemically to your salivary glands. This is where things get interesting. Research shows that melatonin receptors are actually present in your salivary glands. So when melatonin rises, it nudges these glands to alter the output, not just the volume, but the quality. You aren't just producing sleepy spit, you're crafting a hormone-informed, defense-upgraded, enamel-coddling solution engineered for low-light microbial management. Historians still argue whether this salivary hormonal interplay was central to early human survival or just a happy accident of evolution. But either way, it's like your own internal chemistry lab got the memo. It's night, bacteria are plotting, and someone needs to keep the enamel from melting. And melatonin isn't the only one RSVPing to this late-night gum gala. Cortisol, yes, the stress hormone also takes part, but here's the twist. It dips at night, and that drop is crucial. Cortisol in high amounts tends to dampen immune function, including in your saliva. So while you're finally calm and your email inbox has stopped mocking you, your cortisol eases off, allowing salivary antibodies like secretory IgA to step forward. The stage is clear, the spotlight warm. Quirky sidebar, there's a theory floating around that monks in the 14th century who practiced extreme forms of nighttime meditation experienced enhanced salivary immunity. Some ancient texts even note tongue wetness as a sign of divine favor. Fringe? Oh, absolutely. But it does highlight that humans have long connected spit to spiritual and biological health. So you've got melatonin upping the potency, cortisol lowering its guard, and this quiet immune glow radiating through your mouth like a late-night campfire. But let's not forget the sleeper agent, growth hormone. Released in pulses during deep sleep, growth hormone doesn't just repair muscles and tissues, it also helps regulate the composition of extracellular fluids, like saliva. Your nighttime spit isn't just thicker, it's fortified. It's during this phase that your oral pH really matters. The pH scale, remember, goes from 0 to 14, with 7 being neutral. Your mouth during the day hovers around 6.7 to 7.4, depending on what you eat, how much you talk, and whether you just inhaled a bucket of sour gummies. At night, as salivary flow slows, your oral pH can drop, making it more acidic. But here's where your body adjusts. Your saliva becomes slightly more alkaline during this time, thanks to increased bicarbonate content, like a little shot of antacid, easing things back toward a safer zone. The harmony here is weirdly beautiful. Hormones tell your glands to adapt. Your glands release a new formulation of spit. The enzymes change, the pH shifts, the immune system recalibrates, all while you're dreaming that your high school locker still won't open and you're late for algebra. By the way, you ever wonder why your breath smells worse in the morning? It's not because something went wrong overnight. It's because saliva, in all its sticky thickness, just isn't washing your mouth out anymore. During the day, you swallow once every minute or two. At night, that rate can drop to once every 10 minutes or less. Bacteria love a good dry spell. Now here's a historic tidbit for your foggy dream brain. In Victorian England, it was considered impolite to yawn without covering your mouth. Not just out of manners, but because exposing one's stale breath was thought to reveal personal failure. Saliva wasn't just medical, it was moral. Neat how your mouth doubles as a petri dish in a Victorian etiquette dilemma. Oh, and you know how we mentioned pH? Well, one of the key players in maintaining that balance is carbonic anhydrase VI. It's an enzyme secreted into your saliva that helps regulate acid levels. And guess what? Its production is influenced by, you guessed it, your circadian rhythm. Your body's 24-hour internal clock is setting alarms you never knew existed. It tells your kidneys when to filter, your brain when to dream, and your mouth when to start spewing spit with upgraded buffering agents. And here's your quirky fringe moment. In the 1990s, some sleep researchers hypothesized that salivary buffering capacity could predict dream vividness. No, seriously. The theory was that better acid balance led to more stable neurotransmission during REM. That theory didn't quite catch on, but hey, science is just organized curiosity after all. So now, while you're lying there like a burrito of exhaustion, your hormones and your saliva are in perfect whisper-level conversation. They're passing notes across the glandular cafeteria table, adjusting pH, modifying mucins, fine-tuning enzyme levels like a sleepy orchestra with slightly damp sheet music. You don't notice it, of course. You're too busy dreaming about hiking through a mall made entirely of spaghetti or something equally unhinged. But deep in the biological backstage, your body is choreographing a performance that plays out every night without applause. The glands receive hormonal cues, release more targeted saliva, and that sticky, enzyme-loaded stream glides across your enamel with the quiet confidence of a midnight janitor who's been doing this longer than you've been alive. You might be asleep, but the show is still on. And now you're deeper still, just drifting in delta waves while the air in your room hums like a lullaby machine. Your limbs are puddles of warmth, your eyelids motionless, and your jaw, gently unhinged, is ever so slightly parted. That matters, by the way, more than you'd think. Because the way you breathe during sleep directly affects what your saliva can or can't do. If you're a mouth breather, your oral defense team faces a nightly crisis. All that carefully engineered, hormone-tuned, thickened saliva, it starts to dry out. Your tongue gets tacky. The inner lining of your cheeks feels like it's been shellacked. And the protective proteins, they harden, lose potency, and become, essentially, the biochemical version of abandoned scaffolding. You've probably woken up with that scorched feeling, like your tongue spent the night licking the Sahara. That's the tragedy of nighttime mouth breathing. And here's the kicker. As saliva dries, bacterial toxins concentrate. These guys don't sleep. They keep feasting on leftovers, little food particles nestled around your molars, and they produce acid as waste. So now your enamel, already less guarded, is under siege from dehydrated defenses and sour microbial graffiti. Historians still argue whether early humans slept primarily nose up or mouth open. Some believe the development of flatter faces and smaller jaws in Homo sapiens may have encouraged more oral breathing, possibly a side effect of the speech evolution. If true, your ability to say ravioli may be linked to why you sometimes wake up feeling like you chewed on carpet. Now, when you breathe through your nose, it's a different story. Nasal airflow warms, filters, and humidifies the air. This supports saliva's ability to maintain moisture and stay active throughout the night. Also, fun fact, nose breathing increases nitric oxide in your bloodstream, which has mild antibacterial properties. In a weird way, your nostrils are spitting in support of your spit. Let's shift to the tongue for a second. Your tongue is basically a saliva sponge, and it plays a huge role in distributing that protective goo across your mouth. But when you mouth breathe, your tongue tends to dry and rest low. It doesn't press against the palate or help swirl that mucin-rich fluid around. The result? Less coverage. More bacterial colonies setting up tents like it's Burning Man in your molars. And now the quirky detail of the night. In medieval Japan, samurai were trained to sleep with their mouths closed to preserve facial harmony and inner discipline. There were even devices, wooden chin braces, that gently encouraged nasal breathing overnight. Modern sleep trainers might call that extreme, but hey, try waking up after breathing through a fire hydrant for 8 hours, and suddenly a bamboo muzzle sounds kind of reasonable. Weird gadgetry aside, your mouth and breathing habits play a direct role in your oral pH. Remember carbonic anhydrase 6 from earlier? That little buffer enzyme can't help much if your mouth dries out like a raisin in Arizona. And once the saliva dries, so does your pH regulation. Acid rises, tooth minerals dissolve, and your smile? It starts to lose its sparkle. You're probably thinking, well, why doesn't the body just compensate? Well, it tries. That's where minor salivary glands come in. You've got hundreds of tiny glands scattered around your lips, cheeks, and soft palate. At night, these little guys step up, especially when your major salivary glands like the parotid and submandibular slow down. But they can't keep up if you're drying them out with a steady airflow of midnight snoring. Speaking of snoring, here's the real kicker. It doesn't just annoy your partner. Snoring shakes your soft tissues and vibrates your salivary glands, subtly reducing their output over time. Chronic snorers often report worse morning mouth, and even altered taste perception. A 19th century French doctor once wrote that habitual snorers were cursed with tongues like blistered apricots. Not quite medical terminology, but surprisingly vivid. So what can you do about this? For starters, sleep position matters. Back sleeping often encourages mouth breathing, while side sleeping supports nasal airflow. Your pillow height? It affects jaw tension and whether your lips stay sealed. Mouth tape, yes. It's a thing has gained popularity for nudging people toward nose breathing. And if the thought of taping your mouth shut makes you panic, remember, the tape isn't sealing you like a crime scene. It's just a gentle reminder, a nudge toward better overnight airflow and, by extension, healthier saliva action. Now let's circle back to the point. When you breathe through your nose, your oral environment stays moist, your saliva stays active, and the defensive enzymes stay where they're needed. Lysozyme can keep punching holes in bacterial walls. Lactoferrin keeps hoarding iron so bad bugs can't grow. And mucins? Oh, those gooey legends stick around like stagehands after the curtain falls, still sweeping the set. If you stay nose breathing and hydrated, your overnight saliva becomes the dental equivalent of a good butler, quiet, efficient, and loyal to a fault. It won't wake you, it won't need applause. It just polishes your enamel, cleans the debris, and keeps the guests, bacteria, from stealing the silverware, minerals. So the next time you wake up and your lips are sealed tighter than a Tupperware lid, consider it a sign of success. That sticky mouth means saliva did what it could, despite your breathing habits. But if your tongue feels like driftwood and your gums sting like they got into a slap fight, maybe it's time to reconsider your sleeping posture. Or embrace your inner samurai and gently train your jaw to rest closed. Minus the bamboo brace, of course, because in the symphony of sleep, even the breath has a part to play, and saliva's just trying to keep the beat. You stir just slightly, maybe from a dream where your dentist turns into your high school principal, and shift to your side. A soft exhale escapes, and beneath the quiet hum of your fan, your mouth continues its silent chemical ballet. Now we zoom in even closer, past the tongue, past the teeth, right into the molecular gears of your saliva. Because what's inside that sticky nighttime cocktail? It's more than water and regret, it's immunological gold. Saliva isn't just a passive dribble. It's armed with a set of defense agents worthy of a secret agent movie, only a lot wetter. You've already met some of them, lysozyme, lactoferrin, secretory IgA. But during sleep, the levels of these proteins aren't static. They fluctuate in response to your body's internal signals, and their nighttime shift is all about defense. Secretory, immunoglobulin, let's just call it SIGA, because who needs that mouthful steps up in concentration before and during sleep? Think of SIGA as the night watch. It binds to bacteria, viruses, and allergens, preventing them from sticking to your tissues or throwing toxic parties in your gums. SIGA doesn't kill pathogens directly. It tags them for removal. Like that guy in the club who's had 3 too many and is quietly escorted out by security. And here's your historical nugget. Back in the 18, French scientists noticed that soldiers who were sleep-deprived had dramatically weaker saliva samples. At the time, they didn't know what SIGA was, but they called it invisible gum courage. A little melodramatic, sure, but they weren't wrong. Lose sleep, and this little antibody dips. Sleep well, and it rises. Your immune system isn't just influenced by sleep, it's clocking in for the night shift right alongside you. Meanwhile, lysozyme gets to work. This enzyme basically melts bacterial walls. Imagine a tiny, invisible spatula peeling away the outer skin of harmful microbes. It's been around forever, literally. Historians still argue whether lysozyme's role in tears and saliva gave early humans a survival edge against infections, especially in food-scarce times when hygiene was, let's say, less than robust. Like drinking from a shared coconut with your entire tribe, or pre-sanitizer fork fights. At night, your lysozyme levels don't spike dramatically, but their effectiveness may rise. Why? Because with slower saliva flow and less dilution, the enzymes in your mouth operate in a more controlled environment. It's like working in a calm office after everyone else has left. You can get more done when nobody's microwaving fish next to your desk. And lactoferrin, that iron-hoarding diva is still hard at work. Bacteria need iron to grow, and lactoferrin locks it up tighter than your favorite playlist. At night, when your metabolism slows and systemic inflammation can sneak in under the radar, lactoferrin helps keep oral biofilms, think bacterial cities, from flourishing. A quirky side note here, there's a fringe group of biohackers who swish specialized mouth rinses at night, designed to boost these proteins. One product nicknamed Spit Armor by its fans contains synthetic lactoferrin, xylitol, and a patented mucin mimic. Whether it works or not, debated. But the trend reflects a growing awareness of nighttime saliva's secret life. You may not be in the biohacking game, but your body's already a pro at this. Even your taste buds go offline to support the immune action. Yes, taste perception dulls slightly at night, not because your tongue is lazy, but because energy is redirected. Your oral tissues prioritize cellular repair and immune surveillance over food enjoyment. So if you've ever snuck a midnight snack and found it oddly bland, that's not just guilt, it's physiology. And speaking of repair, your gums are quietly doing exactly that. Microscopic tears from chewing, brushing, or being alive get attention during sleep. Fibroblasts in your gum tissue, basically the maintenance crew of your mouth work, best when stress hormones are low and inflammatory markers stabilize. They depend on the consistency of saliva to function properly, using it as both a signaling medium and a hydration source. Historians still argue whether ancient herbal night poultices used in Egyptian dentistry were designed to mimic this natural repair window. Some records describe paste made from myrrh and fig sap left in the mouth overnight. Gross? Absolutely, but they might have been onto something. Those substances do contain antimicrobial and astringent properties. So, ancient spit science, kind of. Now let's get microscopic because you, my friend, are currently producing a very specific flavor of mucin. Mucins are glycoproteins, long chains of sugar and protein that make saliva stretchy and sticky. The two main types in your mouth, MUC5B and MUC7, change in concentration during the sleep cycle. MUC5B becomes more prominent at night, giving saliva that thicker, more viscous quality. Why? Because that thickness slows evaporation, clings to teeth better, and traps bacteria more effectively. MUC5B is like the flypaper of the oral world, gross but genius. And while you sleep, it lines your enamel with a protective sheen, not as glamorous as a skincare serum, but arguably more critical. And in the fringe theory corner, some oral biologists believe that mucin patterns reflect circadian health. One study hinted that erratic sleep schedules, night shifters, cause mucin production to fall out of sync, increasing vulnerability to cavities and gum disease. Basically, bad sleep equals bad spit. Your mouth knows when you've been cheating it, so here you are, barely twitching under your comforter, and your mouth is running a full immunological boot camp. Antibodies are tagging, enzymes are slicing, mucins are spreading, gums are healing, and bacteria, they're on edge, waiting for a weak spot to exploit. But your body, in its quiet, humming wisdom, has prepared for this. You've got a whole mouthful of well-coordinated, low-key biochemical weapons, and they're doing their job so well you don't even wake up to notice. Sleep may seem passive, but your saliva has never been more active. You shift again, the weight of your blanket readjusting gently over your frame, like a tide washing back to shore. Your jaw twitches slightly, just once as your nervous system dips into the calmest trenches of sleep. And in this stillness, we enter the weirdest part of tonight's tale, the saliva-dream connection. Yes, you read that right. See, most people don't think of spit as anything more than something to swallow, or if you're a baseball player from the 1940s, something to spit dramatically on dirt. But your brain and your salivary glands? They're tight. In fact, they talk more than most dating app matches. During REM sleep, where dreams flicker behind your closed eyes like a midnight cinema, your body undergoes all sorts of chemical tweaks. One of the lesser known is that your saliva changes composition again. Not in volume this time, but in taste. You won't consciously notice it, but researchers suggest that the subtly altered ionic makeup of your saliva during dream cycles may influence taste-related dream imagery. Which begs the question, ever dreamt of eating weirdly textured food? Like chewing on velvet cupcakes made of sea sponge? Yeah, you might be tasting, altered nighttime saliva in the background. Historians still argue whether the ancient Greeks believed dreams had flavor, but some early texts imply that dream food was considered part of divine communication, probably a poetic way of describing a night with too much feta. Now here's the science. Salivary electrolytes, specifically sodium and chloride, dip slightly during REM phases. Meanwhile, protein concentration rises. This gives the saliva a subtly different mouthfeel, even if you're unconscious. Some neurologists believe this changing oral environment feeds back into the limbic system, the part of your brain that processes emotion and, interestingly, taste-related memory. A fringe group of researchers call this the oral echo theory, the idea that your mouth's chemistry influences your dream themes, especially those involving eating, speaking, or kissing. Is it mainstream? Not even close. Is it fun to imagine your dream about a mushy hot dog bun was inspired by your mucins? Oh yes. And if you think that's strange, brace yourself for the tongue twitch theory. During deep sleep, and especially REM, your tongue makes tiny, subconscious micromovements. Scientists used to ignore these. Now some think they may be part of a subtle neurological cleaning cycle. Just as your brain clears toxins during sleep, your tongue might be redistributing saliva like a little janitor working the night shift. So you're there, dreaming about losing your teeth in a job interview, classic anxiety plotline, and your tongue is actually helping sweep your mouth with enzyme-rich fluid. It's almost poetic in a slightly creepy way. But this is where things get even nerdier. During certain dream phases, your salivary glands may respond to imagined stimuli. One study exposed sleeping participants to food-related sounds and smells, like bacon sizzling or chocolate being unwrapped, and found mild increases in salivary protein content during REM. No full-on drooling, just subtle prepping, like your body was prepping for dream breakfast. It's almost Pavlovian, but with REM dreams instead of bells. Anecdotally, people report waking up with more or less saliva based on dream intensity. There's no hard science there, but hey, anecdote is just science waiting for funding. One fringe report from the 1970s claimed that erotic dreams led to increased sublingual gland activity. Whether that's true or just wishful thinking from the researcher, historians still argue. Let's pull back for a second. What's the point of all this dream spit business? Well, it shows you how integrated the systems are. Your brain, your immune function, your dreams, they don't operate in separate departments like some badly managed office. They're in constant conversation. And saliva, humble and underappreciated, is a translator in that late-night meeting. And here's your fun historical detour. Ancient Tibetan sleep rituals included gently rinsing the mouth before bed with herbal tea, not to clean the teeth, but to purify the dream channel. Now, modern scholars debate whether that meant anything medical or if it was just an excuse to sip minty things before bed. But maybe they sensed something we're only now studying, how the physical state of the mouth shapes the dream experience. What's certain is that your brain seems to keep tabs on your oral cavity during sleep. If something goes wildly out of balance, like severe dry mouth or inflammation, it can trigger micro-awakenings or even steer dreams into weird terrain. That dream where your teeth turn into jelly beans and start falling out, that may not just be stress, it could also be your mouth sending distress signals. And that connection matters. Because the better your nighttime oral health, the fewer those micro disruptions. And fewer disruptions mean deeper sleep. And deeper sleep means stronger immune coordination. And around we go again in the great carousel of nighttime biology. So next time you dream about biting into a marshmallow that turns into a phone, classic stuff, remember your saliva may be influencing more than just your enamel. It's participating in the quiet theater of sleep, setting the stage with moisture, chemistry, and sensory feedback your conscious brain won't remember, but your nervous system surely does. And that's why keeping your salivary health in top form doesn't just benefit your teeth. It gives your entire dream architecture a smoother ride, a little less desert, a little more velvet cake, or at least fewer stress dreams where your molars explode like popcorn. You're deep in it now, no longer hovering near the edge of sleep, but pulled down into that rich, velvet weight slumber where time stretches, Your limbs feel boneless, and your brain seems to hover somewhere between a spa and a science lab. And your saliva? Oh, it's about to do something dramatic. Because as the night continues, your mouth approaches its driest phase, and that's where things get weird. Welcome to the salivary valley. See, your saliva production doesn't follow a flat line, it dips and peaks like a moody teenager. And the lowest dip, usually a few hours before you naturally wake, is when your mouth dries out like leftover toast in the sun. During this phase, salivary flow can drop to as little as 10% of what it was during daylight hours. That's why you often wake with that delightful sensation of your tongue feeling like a wool mitten glued to the roof of your mouth. But this dramatic dip isn't a flaw, it's intentional. Your body's internal clock, the circadian rhythm, drives this pattern. Historians still argue whether this rhythm was purely adaptive for rest or if it had some evolutionary link to avoiding nighttime predators by encouraging total stillness, including speechlessness. Either way, your glands take a serious break. Now here's where it gets juicy. Ironically, even though your mouth feels dry, the composition of what little saliva remains becomes highly specialized. During this low tide, it's more concentrated like a slow-dripping, ultra-dense mouth serum. Higher in mucins, immunoglobulins, and proteins like defensines, it's less about lubrication and more about forming a protective barrier. It's basically turning your mouth into a tiny fortress against bacterial invaders. That concentrated mucin blend coats your enamel like biological cling wrap. It's clingy, sticky, and very clingy. Yes, we said that twice. This goop is dense enough to slow down bacteria, trap stray food particles, to help stabilize pH levels, all without requiring your conscious effort. It's a passive defense system like motion sensor lights, but for your teeth. There's a reason dental researchers refer to this time as the acid window, because while your body is in its lowest saliva output state, your teeth are most vulnerable to demineralization if the protective layer is weak. That's why brushing before bed is non-negotiable. Skipping it before this low-flow period is like heading into a rainstorm without your umbrella, or worse, your pants. Here's a fringe theory for your midnight musings. Some believe this deep dryness is a metabolic signal to the brain, a way of synchronizing gut and immune timing. The mouth goes dry, gut motility slows, lymphatic cleanup peaks. Is it proven? Not really, but the idea of your whole system communicating via moisture levels is just the right level of weird to be charming. Now let's flash back, way back to ancient Mesopotamia. Clay tablets from over 3,000 years ago describe rituals involving spit fasting during sleep hours. People were advised not to lick their lips or swallow unless absolutely necessary. Scholars still debate whether this had a spiritual basis or was an early nod to saliva's nighttime healing role. Either way, it proves that even then folks noticed. Something special happens in the mouth when the world goes quiet. And this dry spell doesn't just impact your mouth, it subtly changes your breathing. As your body shifts into this low saliva state, your airways may constrict slightly, nudging you toward nose breathing instead of mouth breathing. Unless, of course, you snore like a wood chipper. In which case, welcome to the alternate timeline where your mouth dries even faster and your protective salivary film gets stripped like paint off an old barn. Mouth breathing at night is a whole other rabbit hole, but here's the cliff notes. It increases your risk of cavities, bad breath, and gum inflammation. Your saliva can't coat your teeth properly when your mouth is gaping open like a broken garage door. It evaporates too quickly, and without it, bacteria go wild. One fringe favorite intervention? Mouth taping. Yep, people literally tape their lips shut to encourage nasal breathing and protect salivary function. Safe? Popular on wellness TikTok? Absolutely. Meanwhile, inside your cheeks, another quiet revolution is unfolding. Buccal cells, those little skin cells that line your mouth, are absorbing some of the remaining saliva, particularly its mineral content. It's not just about defense, it's about absorption, nutrient exchange, and repair. And the drier your mouth gets, the more concentrated those interactions become. You're not just coasting through the night, you're marinating in an invisible health tonic. And remember that immune team we talked about earlier? Still on the job, SIGA, defensines, and lysozyme may be in lower quantities now, but they're more active due to the reduced dilution. Think of it like espresso shots for your gums, small, intense, and guaranteed to keep the nasties in check. There's a quirky old Russian sleep study, dubious in its ethics, but fascinating in its data, that noted a measurable drop in nighttime tooth decay among soldiers trained to breathe exclusively through their noses while sleeping. Again, not mainstream, and possibly flavored with Cold War science fiction, but it points to an interesting trend. Lower saliva volume doesn't always mean less protection. Sometimes it means better deployment. Of course, you may not feel the elegance of this salivary shift. All you know is that sometimes you wake up feeling like you've been chewing sand, and your first impulse is to guzzle water like a dehydrated cactus. But now you know, that dry mouth wasn't a mistake. It was the result of a carefully timed biological shift, tailored to protect you while you lie helpless, slack-jawed, and dreaming about falling off a bicycle made of pancakes. So yes, saliva dips low, but it never quits. And what it leaves behind, those sticky, concentrated remnants, are holding the front line while your consciousness floats far away. You stir slightly now, not waking, just adjusting, the kind of soft, instinctual movement that barely reaches your mind. Your hand might brush your cheek. A breath deeper than the rest escapes your lips. And through it all, your mouth is staging its own pre-dawn comeback. Because saliva, it's not done with you yet. In fact, right now it's prepping for its grand reentrance. Yes, as your body begins nudging toward morning long, before your alarm buzzes or the first beams of light creep in, your saliva production starts to rise. Slowly at first, it's like someone gently nudging open a faucet. What began as a near standstill just a couple hours ago now picks up speed again, trickle by trickle. Why? Because your body knows you're getting ready to re-enter the world of chewing, chatting, and yelling at your inbox. This transition is more than just volume. The composition shifts too. It's less about defense now, more about digestion prep. Enzymes like amylase, your starch-busting MVP, start to climb again. Your mouth is warming up for breakfast, even if you're still dreaming about not wearing pants in high school. There's a lovely irony here. You've been unconscious for hours, yet your body's already planning your next meal. This anticipatory rise in saliva is part of what scientists call a feed-forward mechanism. Your body prepares for food based on habit, not hunger. Even if you skip breakfast entirely, looking at you, coffee-only crew, your glands still do their job. They're eternal optimists, really. Now, remember how we talked about your saliva turning into a protective, viscous night serum? Well, during this transition, it begins thinning out again. Less mucin heavy, more fluid, like a soup going from stew back to broth. It wants to be ready for talking, tasting, and neutralizing that first cup of acidic morning brew. Some researchers believe this reactivation phase also connects to melatonin metabolism. As your levels of melatonin fall, your salivary glands rev up. Historians still argue whether ancient Ayurvedic practitioners understood this circadian link when they advised oil pulling right after waking, but it's fascinating how old rituals overlap with new science. But let's detour into something a little stranger. Some studies show that this early morning saliva, this first batch you produce upon waking, is slightly different in flavor and chemistry than daytime saliva. Richer in nitrates, slightly more alkaline, and oddly metallic to some people. There's no definitive answer why. One fringe theory suggests it's your body's attempt to clear out any overnight microbial buildup, like using a mini acid neutralizing rinse. That could explain why some people instinctively spit upon waking, as if their mouth says, nope, let's start fresh. Historically, saliva as a morning diagnostic fluid goes way back. In medieval Europe, some doctors believed that the taste of a person's first spit could predict their health for the day. Sweet? Good humors. Bitter? Illness brewing. It's pseudoscience now, of course, but the idea of your mouth being a mirror of your inner state is surprisingly accurate, just better tested with modern tools than, well, licking it. Back in your sleeping form, though, your body is making these shifts without needing your say-so. The rehydration process has begun. Even your facial muscles twitch in subtle prep. It's like a symphony warming up before the curtain lifts. And the maestro, your parasympathetic nervous system, slowly handing control back over as the curtain of sleep begins to draw open. This morning saliva uptick is also the moment when your oral pH starts to climb again. Remember that acid window from the last section? It's closing. The buffer zone is coming back online. That increase in bicarbonate ions gives your mouth its defensive sparkle again. You're shifting from passive protection to active readiness. Oh, and here's your quirky tidbit. In the 1980s, a toothpaste brand briefly toyed with marketing a wake-up mouth test, encouraging users to test their saliva pH as part of their morning routine. It flopped because nothing says good morning like spitting on a litmus strip, but the science behind it wasn't wrong. Your oral chemistry really is doing a daily pivot while you snooze. Now this moment, this rehydration, reactivation, reinvigoration is key for more than just dental health. It's also connected to cognitive refresh. As saliva ramps up, so does sensory feedback. Your mouth regains full awareness. Subtle nerve signals tied to taste and touch begin reporting in again. Some researchers suggest this oral sensory reawakening plays a role in helping your brain reorient itself after sleep, grounding you gently in the body before the mind fully switches on. And maybe that's why those first few swallows in the morning feel noticeable. Not dramatic, but distinct. Your throat relubricates, your jaw flexes slightly, your tongue rolls around like it's trying to remember where it lives. These aren't just subconscious fidgets, they're part of the grand reentry process. You're not just waking up. You're rebooting your entire headspace, starting with your spit. Let's be honest, you've probably never thanked your saliva for helping you survive the night. But maybe now you should, because it's the unsung hero of your sleep health story. All night long, it changed forms, fought bacterial invaders, carried messages, and now it's gently guiding you back toward wakefulness, drop by drop. Soon, your brain will catch on. The light behind your eyelids will sharpen. Maybe your stomach will growl, but your mouth is always first to know the show's about to start, and your saliva, already on stage, ready to cue the first line. And now, as morning edges closer, you're still half buried in dreams, part of you floating through foggy landscapes, the other sensing subtle biological shifts. You might even smack your lips in your sleep, because your mouth is getting reacquainted with itself. It's the dawn patrol, and saliva's leading the charge. Your glands are in a gentle frenzy now. The parotid glands, the big hitters up near your cheeks, start pulsing out the more watery kind of saliva again. Not that thick, protective stuff from earlier, but the easy-flowing, speech-ready juice. You're not talking yet, hopefully, but your body wants you ready. There's a soft return to lubrication, as if your mouth is stretching before taking a bow. This ramp-up isn't just about keeping your teeth safe. It's about re-engaging your entire oral environment. While you're still horizontal, your saliva is already buffering acids, sweeping away the last bacterial remnants of the night, and rehydrating your poor neglected gums like the world's gentlest spa technician. Here's a detail you might find both charming and gross. Overnight bacterial colonies peak in number and activity about 30 minutes before you wake up. Basically, your mouth is throwing one last invisible party just before your saliva bursts in like an overzealous bouncer. If you've ever wondered why your breath in the morning could clear a room faster than a fire drill, there's your culprit. It's not that you did anything wrong, it's just that your mouth hosted a microscopic rager. Historically speaking, halitosis in the morning has been both comedy gold and social horror. In ancient Rome, wealthier citizens chewed mint and myrrh leaves immediately upon waking, not just for the breath, but as a ritual of purification. They believed that foul morning breath could corrupt conversations, turn friendships sour, even curse legal arguments. Historians still argue whether this was rooted in religious fear or just good old social anxiety. But either way, it shows how universally known this phenomenon is. But we're not here to panic you about dragon breath. Let's talk instead about the sheer elegance of this salivary reset, because that's what this phase is. A full reset, a rinse cycle, a palate cleanser, a natural detox with no fancy marketing needed. Your mouth is cycling from night mode to day mode, and it's all triggered by your body's internal schedule. At the cellular level, tiny feedback loops are firing in your submandibular and sublingual glands, those tucked under your jaw and tongue. These are your moisture makers now, shifting production toward enzymes and electrolytes. Why? Because once you open your eyes, every sense will be screaming for attention. Taste, especially, and taste doesn't work without saliva. That slice of toast, that berry smoothie, that bitter espresso shot, you wouldn't sense half of it without a proper salivary coat. And this is the part that's often overlooked. Saliva isn't just for digestion or defense. It's the stage light for your taste buds. Without it, flavor molecules don't dissolve properly, meaning you'd miss all the good stuff. A dry tongue is a mute tongue. Saliva is what lets your food sing in full stereo. Here's a fringe theory from the quirky side of research. Some scientists suggest that the exact composition of your early morning saliva could one day be used to predict your emotional baseline for the day. In other words, your mood could be forecast based on cortisol traces, enzyme activity, and microbial shifts found in that first post-wake-up spit. We're not there yet, but imagine a future where your toothbrush also gives you a mini therapy session. Meanwhile, back in the reality of your still sleeping self, there's a tiny battle being fought at the back of your tongue. It's the microbial territory war. Streptococcus mutans, the notorious tooth decay gremlin, is trying to hold its position. But your newly thin enzyme-rich saliva is starting to dislodge its power. The pH in your mouth is rising, acid is neutralizing, and the bacteria are feeling less like conquerors and more like squatters about to be evicted. And let's not forget hydration. Your body loses moisture as you sleep, not just through sweat and breath, but also through that dry, open mouth if you snore or breathe through it. This makes saliva reactivation an internal alert that it's time to hydrate again. Ever notice how thirsty you are the moment you fully wake up? That's your body saying, hey, great job surviving the night. Now please pour something down your throat before your tongue gets dusty. Now here's your fun historical tidbit. In traditional Chinese medicine, morning saliva was considered golden dew, a sacred elixir. Practitioners advised swallowing it slowly before even speaking to promote longevity and mental clarity. Weird? Maybe, but it's poetic. And who's to say they weren't onto something? That saliva is, after all, full of growth factors, hormones, and electrolytes. It's a biochemical smoothie yours, all natural, sugar-free. As the rest of your body prepares to open shop for the day, your mouth is already halfway there. Your tongue, now slick and smooth again, begins gently gliding over your teeth as if to say, we good here? Your breath starts to freshen, not minty fresh, but alive fresh. The kind that says your metabolism is humming, your immunity is online, and your sense of self is returning. You might not notice this miracle in motion. Most people don't. They wake up, grumble, check their phones, and stumble toward coffee. But your mouth, it's already been up for a while, clocking in early, mopping the floors, unlocking the doors, and making sure you're ready to face the world, even if the world includes morning traffic and existential dread. So yes, while your mind is still stretching its arms in the cave of sleep, your mouth is fully operational. Thanks to that early morning spike in salivation. You're no longer a helpless nocturnal sponge. You're becoming human again. Just don't forget to brush your teeth. Your saliva can't do all the work. You're almost there now, caught in that delicious tug between dreaming and waking, where you could swear the blanket just sighed. And right in this liminal hush, your saliva is quietly executing its final task of the night shift, prepping your immune system to re-engage with the real world. Because as dawn approaches, something remarkable happens. Your mouth, which has been in self-defense mode all night, now pivots. It stops guarding the gates and starts supporting the troops. Saliva switches gears from shield to supply line. Think of it as your body's way of saying, okay, we held the fort overnight. Now let's rebuild, restock, and get your morning immune response back online. Here's how it works. As the sun creeps closer, even if your blackout curtains insist otherwise, certain immunoglobulins in your saliva, specifically IgA, begin to rise. These little protein defenders are part of your adaptive immune system, like neighborhood watch volunteers with molecular binoculars. They mark intruders for destruction and quietly monitor everything you breathe, chew, or accidentally lick. And fun fact, your salivary IgA levels don't just rise randomly. They follow a circadian pattern, peaking in the early morning and late evening. Historians still argue whether ancient monks who structured their entire lives around sun cycles and silent mornings had any inkling of this rhythm. But their practice of starting the day with herbal rinses and quiet meditation may have offered some immunological perks they didn't fully understand. Meanwhile, you're probably still lying there like a warm burrito, blissfully unaware that your first biological conversation with the outside world is already underway in your mouth. Even before you get up, sniff the air, or stretch those mystery back muscles, your oral cavity is checking ID at the immune door. At this point, the flow rate of saliva is climbing, steadily approaching daytime levels. Not quite full-on hydration mode, but enough to coat your teeth, rinse bacteria, and transport those immune markers to the tissues that need them. If you were to yawn right now, and you probably just did, you'd be bathing your tonsils in these freshly boosted antibodies. Yawning, nature's lazy immune delivery system. But this moment isn't just about immunity, it's also about calibration. As your saliva production increases, so does the feedback loop between your nervous system and your oral tissues. Mechanoreceptors in your gums and cheeks begin to fire again, slowly reestablishing proprioception. That's your brain's ability to map your body in space. One reason you don't bite your tongue every morning? This sensory reboot, brought to you in part by spit. And here's your quirky tidbit of the night. In 1910, a fringe research team hypothesized that saliva might hold clues to ESP, yes, extrasensory perception. They thought certain enzyme fluctuations during dreams could encode psychic impressions from the ether. It didn't pan out, obviously. But the mere idea that saliva might be a record keeper of sleep time secrets is deliciously strange. What's not strange is how saliva transitions from protector to communicator in this pre-waking window. See, your oral cavity isn't a sealed-off system. It's a high-traffic zone. As your digestive tract readies for breakfast, your mouth sends chemical cues downward. Saliva carries enzymes, hormones, and even tiny messenger RNAs, molecular texts telling your gut, "We've got incoming." All before your eyes even open. And let's not forget the teeth. By now, the enamel has endured hours of low saliva exposure. It's dry, slightly demineralized, and ever so vulnerable. But the saliva sweeping in now, it's like a morning tide depositing calcium, phosphate, and fluoride if you've been brushing like a responsible adult. This remineralization phase is crucial. It repairs the damage done during the acidic, bacteria-fueled dream hours. Historically, ancient Egyptians had a curious relationship with morning oral health. They believed breath odor could indicate not just physical illness, but also spiritual unrest. Their solution? Chewing sticks made from Salvadora persica, what we now call the miswak. Modern studies show this natural toothbrush actually stimulates saliva production and offers antibacterial benefits. So thousands of years before toothpaste, they were hacking their spit. And yes, it's worth repeating. Saliva isn't just a passive puddle. It's a full-spectrum health agent, especially now when you're on the brink of wakefulness. Your tongue stretches ever so slightly. Your lips press together, releasing that soft, sleepy puff of breath. And your glands keep working, faithfully, producing the potion that makes you functional, fresh, and let's be honest, fit for social interaction. This stage is also where a curious philosophical question arises. When does sleep end exactly? Is it the first eye flicker? The first breath through your nose instead of your mouth? Or is it when your salivary chemistry officially shifts from defensive to digestive? We don't have a definitive answer, but we do know this. Your body marks time with more precision than your alarm clock ever could. These micro adjustments, like the shift in saliva content, the uptick in immune proteins, the slow return to flavor perception, they're your body's way of quietly tapping you on the shoulder. Wake up, but gently. There's a reason saliva is becoming a goldmine for diagnostic research. From stress hormones to cancer biomarkers, your morning spit holds clues to your health, habits, and maybe even your hidden anxieties. It's like a wet little resume for your body, and it prints itself fresh every morning. So as you lie there, maybe halfway aware of your pillow's temperature or the sound of a distant garbage truck, know this: your saliva has already gotten a head start on your day. It's buffering, bathing, rebuilding, and rebooting you from the inside out. Soon, you'll sit up, yawn for real, shuffle to the bathroom, maybe mutter something about coffee like it's a religious chant. But long before your brain remembers your name, your saliva already had you covered. Your eyelids twitch now, fluttering like they're deciding whether to let the morning in. You shift under the covers. The world waits outside, but your mouth, always the early riser, is already open for business. Saliva is now officially clocked in for the day shift, and your oral ecosystem has made the leap from nocturnal maintenance to daytime performance. This is the moment when saliva goes full superstar. Everything you're about to do, from your first sip of water to your first mutter at the news, is going to rely on this slick, slightly unsung substance. You might not feel it yet, but your parotid glands are working harder now, pulsing out more of the thin, enzyme-rich spit designed for speed and multitasking. And what's saliva's first big gig of the day? Taste. The moment something touches your tongue, whether it's toothpaste, a gulp of orange juice, or that ill-advised leftover pizza, your saliva is already working to dissolve the food molecules and escort them directly to your taste buds. Without this fluid delivery service, you'd barely register sweetness or spice. In fact, without saliva, all food would taste like damp cardboard, which is actually what cardboard tastes like. Someone tested that. Here's a fun historical side note to chew on, pun intended. In Elizabethan England, nobility believed that morning spit, especially the first swallow, was powerful. Some used it in love potions or to cast protective charms. Historians still argue whether this was sincere magic or an excuse to swap spit in a pre-Tinder world. But hey, it adds an odd romance to your morning mouth. By now, your body's cortisol levels are gently rising too. That's your internal wake-up juice, triggering all kinds of responses. Sharpening awareness, nudging blood sugar up, and yes, stimulating salivary flow. Your glands take the cue and respond in kind, producing more amylase-rich saliva to prep for digestion. This is the kind that breaks down carbohydrates. Even before you eat, your body is guessing what you might eat. And here's the really fascinating part. Your morning saliva isn't just more abundant, it's also chemically distinct. The enzyme balance shifts subtly. The antimicrobial proteins are still there, but now they share the spotlight with digestive and sensory compounds. It's like your mouth transitions from a night guard to a maitre d', welcoming the day's first flavors, scanning them, and sending reports downstairs to your stomach. Let's pause here for a moment and consider one of saliva's most overlooked features. It teaches your body what to expect. Literally, it pre-tastes your food and starts triggering downstream processes before you even swallow. If you bite into a croissant, your saliva breaks it down, triggers insulin release preemptively, and tells your gut, butter incoming, prepare accordingly. No drama, just elegant bio-anticipation. And this sensory awakening goes both ways. The act of chewing stimulates even more salivary flow, a feedback loop that primes the rest of your digestive system. That's why chewing gum can sometimes curb nausea or increase focus. Your mouth doesn't just taste food, it predicts your needs and prepares your entire body to respond. Quirky tidbit time. There's an unproven but persistent theory that people with naturally high saliva flow are more likely to enjoy spicy foods. Why? Because they can buffer the heat faster, diluting the burn and preventing long-lasting agony. So if you're the kind of person who thinks jalapenos are mild, you might owe that superpower to your spit. Meanwhile, your teeth are getting their post-night polish. That's right, your saliva is actively laying down minerals again, helping enamel recover from its sleepy time acid bath. As you chew, your saliva even changes consistency. The faster and harder you chew, the more watery it becomes, optimizing the rinse effect. The texture of food, the temperature, the scent, all of it alters how your glands behave. You're basically conducting an orchestra every time you nibble. And if you skip breakfast, well, your mouth knows. Studies show that fasting alters the composition of morning saliva, increasing certain stress markers while reducing overall flow. Your body is adaptable, sure, but it keeps score. No food means fewer chewing signals, less buffering, in a drier oral environment, one where bacteria get a little too comfortable. Now, if you're the type who goes straight for coffee before brushing your teeth, you're in good company. Millions do it. But just know this, that coffee breath isn't just because of the coffee. It's the combination of hot liquid, disrupted pH, and leftover nighttime bacteria having a pool party in your molars. Saliva tries to keep up, but even it has its limits. Your best defense? Water first, brush second, coffee third. Yes, I know, blasphemy. But let's not be harsh. Saliva is still there for you, constantly adjusting, constantly reacting. Even if you abuse it with acidic drinks or forget to floss for, say, a presidential term, it tries to protect you. It coats tiny wounds. It clears food debris. It even plays a role in wound healing, thanks to a little molecule called epidermal growth factor. That's right, your spit is an emetic. In fact, here's something wild. Researchers are actively exploring salivary diagnostics to detect early signs of systemic diseases. Everything from diabetes to Parkinson's. Your morning saliva may one day replace blood draws for regular checkups. Imagine spitting into a little cup and getting a full health report. Good news, cholesterol's down. Also, lay off the hot sauce. Sounds futuristic, but we're already halfway there. So now you finally sit up. Rub your eyes. Maybe you groan into the void. Your mouth moves. Saliva slides across your tongue, softening every consonant, lubricating every yawn. You don't notice it, but it's doing its job flawlessly, making sure that first word of the day doesn't scrape out like a dying frog. Saliva has one more quiet role to play now. Re-establishing your voice. Your vocal folds, those delicate flaps down your throat, need hydration to vibrate properly. Dry folds mean croaky speech. Saliva is already trickling down in tiny, unnoticed sips, making sure your good morning doesn't sound like a haunted house. So while your brain might still be buffering like an old laptop, your mouth is already fully online. Functional, flowing, and utterly fabulous. Just try not to ruin it with garlic before 9 a.m. You're vertical now, sort of. Maybe you've shuffled toward the bathroom, eyes half closed, heart not yet committed to the idea of being awake. But your saliva? Already on the job, surging into high gear like it never took a nap in the first place. This is peak daytime formulation, fast-flowing, enzyme-rich, immune-aware, and utterly essential. Let's zoom in for a second. That thin film you feel coating your teeth? That's your acquired enamel pellicle, basically, the salivary equivalent of a Kevlar vest. It formed within minutes of you waking, a mix of glycoproteins and protective compounds, laying down a shield that guards against acids, sugars, and all the delightful chaos you're about to ingest. This pellicle, believe it or not, has been studied for its unique ability to selectively allow some molecules through while blocking others, like a nightclub bouncer with a PhD. And here's your historical nugget for this round. During the 17th century, French physicians believed saliva had magical properties. They collected it in small jars as part of elaborate humoral treatments for everything from melancholy to digestive complaints. Historians still argue whether these treatments were genuinely medicinal or just early examples of the placebo effect with a side of mild disgust. But the fact remains, people instinctively knew that spit meant something. Today, we know saliva's role in maintaining oral balance is no joke. Right now, as you finally reach for that toothbrush, your saliva is already breaking down tiny remnants of bacteria, buffering acids left behind from the night, and reestablishing your oral microbiome's delicate pH. Brushing isn't just about scrubbing, it's about giving your spit a running start, clearing the grime so it can work more efficiently. You brush, you rinse, and with each motion, you're not just cleaning, you're resetting. Your salivary flow rate spikes even higher in response to that minty toothpaste in rhythmic movement. This is mechanical stimulation at work. Your glands interpret it as, oh, it's go time, and send a rush of secretions that's both cleansing and priming. But here's where it gets weirder. Did you know your dominant hand affects the intensity of your salivary response to brushing? Studies have shown that people using their non-dominant hand for oral care actually produce less saliva during the task. Maybe it's the awkward angle, maybe it's the lack of confident movement, but either way, your spit prefers familiar choreography. As you finish brushing and lean toward the mirror, you might notice your mouth feels light, clean, almost zingy. That sensation? That's the harmony of freshly boosted saliva, neutral pH, and a scrubbed bacterial slate. You're ready now, not just to speak, but to taste, to eat, to defend against the constant parade of microscopic invaders this day will throw at you. And speaking of taste, let's talk breakfast. Because your first bites will trigger one of the most dramatic shifts in saliva composition you'll experience all day. Depending on what you eat, your body tailors your spit accordingly. Sugar? Expect an uptick in amylase and buffer proteins. Eggs or toast? You'll get more mucins, those long, slippery molecules that coat food and make swallowing smoother than a politician during campaign season. But here's the kicker. Even thinking about food can alter your saliva. That's called the cephalic phase response, where sensory cues like smell or sight prompt your body to prepare for digestion. See a croissant? Your brain whispers to your glands, and boom, a pre-breakfast flood of spit that's already analyzing, anticipating, and calibrating. You can thank a few key cranial nerves for this fast-acting mechanism. The facial nerve, 7, glossopharyngeal, IX, and vagus, X all chime in. They sense, signal, and regulate the symphony of salivation. And yes, this neural complexity is why sometimes one weird smell, looking at you, airport Cinnabon, can trigger a full-on Pavlovian response. Now let's add a quirky little fringe fact. In 1978, a group of alternative health researchers tried to develop a saliva diet based on the idea that you could measure your food compatibility by how much spit you produced when chewing it. High spit, green light. Dry mouth, avoid. It didn't catch on, probably because kale makes everyone dry-mouthed, but it reflects just how deeply people have tried to interpret this oddly personal fluid. Back in your morning, you're now mid-breakfast. Each chew sends signals. Each swallow initiates a cascade. Your salivary glands keep pace like a well-trained crew, adjusting viscosity, adding antimicrobial peptides, and smoothing every bite's passage down the esophagus. Your mouth and gut are in constant communication, coordinating through chemical whispers carried in every drop of saliva. And this isn't just about eating. Talking, laughing, breathing, all of it relies on properly hydrated mucous membranes. Ever tried giving a presentation with dry mouth? It's like trying to vacuum with a paper straw. Your spit ensures your words land softly, your lips glide smoothly, and your tongue doesn't feel like sandpaper mid-sentence. So yes, saliva might be gross when taken out of context. No one's bottling it for perfume. But it's your number one ally for nearly every function you need to be human. Even right now, as you contemplate the long stretch of the day ahead, your mouth is quietly staying a step ahead, anticipating needs you haven't even had yet. And one more thing, saliva isn't just reacting to your food and brushing habits. It's reading your stress levels too. Cortisol, alpha amylase, and other bioindicators show up in saliva long before they're measurable in blood. Your mouth knows when you're nervous, shinoi, exhilarated, or in love because the chemistry shifts. It always shifts. In fact, many cutting-edge researchers are now pushing to make salivary diagnostics the new frontier of personalized medicine. Imagine waking up, spitting into a tiny device, and knowing your hydration level, glucose, viral exposure, or hormonal status before you even hit the shower. That future's not far off, and it all begins with what's happening in your mouth this very morning. So now you're fed, cleaned, maybe caffeinated. Your mouth feels like your own again. You talk, you yawn, you sigh at your inbox. And every time your lips part, your saliva is right there acting, reacting, protecting, delivering. It doesn't ask for praise, but it deserves some. Because while you might think of yourself as starting your day, the truth is your saliva started it for you. You're fully in motion now. The day has your attention emails, errands, traffic, maybe a forgotten water bottle on the car seat. But even as the pace picks up, your saliva continues its quiet, unbroken rhythm. Every breath, every bite, every phone call, it's there, adjusting, calibrating, flowing. You don't have to tell it what to do. It just does. At this point in the circadian arc, your salivary glands settle into a kind of cruise control. Not the turbocharged morning mode, not yet the whispery glide of evening, just steady, purposeful output. You're producing about 0.3, zero point 0.4 milliliters per minute while resting, but that can spike to over 4 milliliters per minute when eating or talking excitedly. And if you're someone who gesticulates wildly with both hands while describing, say, your dog's latest dramatic squirrel encounter, yeah, expect a mini monsoon. And here's a not-so-fun but fascinating fact. Dehydration doesn't just make you thirsty, it slows your saliva to a crawl. That dry, tacky mouth feeling after 2 cups of coffee and no water, that's your parotid glands gasping. When you're dehydrated, your body prioritizes blood volume over spit. Logical, yes, but it means your teeth lose their personal security team, and acid-producing bacteria begin setting up camp. Back in ancient Greece, physicians like Hippocrates used saliva texture to diagnose illnesses. Thick, stringy spit, indicative of internal imbalance. Thin and sweet, possibly linked to early diabetes, although they obviously didn't call it that yet. Historians still argue whether these observational diagnoses were truly effective or just proto-science mixed with poetic guesswork. But either way, they recognize saliva's value as a bodily barometer. Now here's a little sidebar for the trivia nerd in you. Camels, yes, camels have especially viscous saliva that helps them retain moisture during long stretches without water. Their spit is so thick it helps them chew dry desert vegetation without damaging their soft tissues. In other words, evolution made their mouths into little climate-controlled ecosystems. You, on the other hand, just get cranky without a LaCroix. Back to your day. Let's say you've grabbed a snack, maybe something crunchy, like almonds. As soon as those hit your tongue, your salivary glands kick into a responsive mode. More mucins to coat the rough edges. A boost in buffer compounds to prepare for potential acidity. A tweak in electrolytes. You're not just chewing, you're activating a full-body system of preparation and protection. And in the background, your salivary flow is playing defense neutralizing low-level threats, managing pH, clearing bacterial metabolites. It's an open secret in dentistry. People who produce less saliva are more prone to cavities, bad breath, and even systemic infections. And those differences aren't always about hydration. Genetics, medication, and even anxiety all shift your spit situation. For example, anxiety ramps up cortisol and can constrict blood vessels feeding your salivary glands. That's why a panic attack often comes with dry mouth. On the flip side, calming yourself through breath work, music, even chewing gum can reset your flow rate and reduce that awful cotton mouth feeling. Ever had someone whisper in your ear, "You've got something in your teeth," and instantly feel your mouth flood with embarrassment moisture? That's your autonomic nervous system firing on all cylinders. Fight or flight doesn't just spike adrenaline, it tweaks your saliva too. And speaking of systems firing, have you ever noticed how smells during the day can shift your whole body chemistry? A whiff of freshly baked bread from a passing cafe, and suddenly you're salivating like a Pavlovian bellhop. That's real, and it's neural. Olfactory input directly stimulates the brain regions responsible for salivation. You don't even need to eat it. Your glands don't wait for confirmation, they just believe in the dream. Quirky interlude. In a strange 1950s experiment, researchers exposed subjects to imaginary food scenarios, just verbal descriptions, and still observed measurable increases in salivary flow. One participant reportedly salivated heavily while describing a ham sandwich he hadn't eaten in years. Science, sometimes as weird as it is wonderful. As you roll through midday, your oral ecosystem remains reactive. If you've eaten acidic foods, say tomatoes or citrus, your saliva jumps into repair mode, ramping up bicarbonate buffers and calcium-rich ions to begin remineralizing enamel before decay has a chance to start. It's like dental triage in real time. And yet, saliva isn't just fixing problems. It's also managing balance. By now, your oral pH should be hovering around neutral, ideally between 6.2 and 7.6. A drop below that, and you invite demineralization. A rise above, and your natural flora gets cranky. Your saliva is the one keeping that Goldilocks zone intact. Remember that acquired pellicle we mentioned earlier? Throughout the day, it shifts to thickening, adapting to your habits, binding to beneficial bacteria while keeping more aggressive strains at bay. It's not just a shield, it's a selectively permeable friend filter. You have to admire that. But even the best systems get tired. If you've been talking all day or you're stuck in a low humidity environment like an airplane cabin or an over air-conditioned office, your mouth will start to dry out. You'll swallow more often, feel your lips stick, maybe even lose a little vocal clarity. That's your body saying, hey, I've been running this hydration circus all day. Can I get a water bottle over here? Hydration, by the way, is the easiest and most effective way to keep your saliva working properly. Not fancy sports drinks, not sugar-packed mints, just water. Your glands will thank you, your teeth will sparkle with gratitude, and your breath, your coworkers will notice. There's something quietly heroic about this whole system. It's not flashy, it doesn't get much appreciation, but your saliva, even here in the chaotic swirl of your waking life, is acting like a full-time bodyguard, diplomat, sanitation worker, and taste concierge. And all you have to do is exist. As you near the latter half of your day, your glands will begin their slow wind-down. Saliva production is governed in part by your circadian rhythm, which means the gradual descent toward lower flow has already begun. You won't feel it, not yet, but the chemistry of your spit is already shifting in anticipation of nightfall. You're heading into the long, sloping exhale of your day, and your mouth knows it before you do. Evening seeps in softly first as a shift in the color of the sky, then as a change in your own pace. The momentum that carried you through emails, errands, and back-to-back conversations starts to slow. You might be finishing dinner, brushing crumbs from your lap, thinking vaguely about whether you can get away with skipping floss tonight. But your saliva, it's already making its final adjustments. This is where things get beautifully subtle. Your flow rate declines down from daytime highs to a gentle trickle, sometimes less than 0.1 milliliters per minute. Your body is whispering, okay, let's start winding down. And your glands respond with a slower, thicker mix. Less volume, more mucus. Fewer digestive enzymes, a heavier emphasis on coating, lubricating, and protecting. If you happen to yawn right now, your mouth stretches wide, and that slight slickness you feel at the back of your throat, that's your evening saliva. It's less about breaking down bagels and more about prepping the soft tissues of your mouth for 8 hours of stillness. Saliva at night becomes a moisturizing balm, keeping cells hydrated and the oral biome from turning into a desert. And here's your mainstream historical nugget. In ancient Rome, it was considered extremely rude to speak while eating, not because of table manners, but because people believed you might accidentally lose your vital moisture. They revered saliva as a literal life force, and spitting in public was sometimes punished with fines. Historians still argue whether these early taboos were rooted in genuine hygiene concerns or just the Roman obsession with bodily restraint. Meanwhile, your modern mouth is dealing with its own kind of etiquette brushing, flossing, mouth rinsing, tongue scraping if you're feeling ambitious. These rituals don't just remove the day's debris, they clear the playing field for saliva's overnight protection team. Every swipe of the toothbrush exposes a little more enamel, a little more gum line, and saliva rushes to cloak it all before bed. Now here's a fringe tidbit to sweeten the story. In 2011, a group of sleep researchers studying astronauts in low-gravity environments found that their salivary glands behave differently in space. The absence of gravity reduced saliva's drainage pathways, making it harder to swallow and easier for bacteria to proliferate. That means get this spit becomes even more vital when the usual rules of Earth don't apply. Your bedtime drool? Astronauts would be jealous. As you slip into your nighttime routine-changing clothes, scrolling a little too long, trying to remember if you fed the cat, your saliva is quietly thickening. Why? To trap bacteria, to coat oral tissues, to form a dense enough layer that any harmful invaders trying to sneak into your gums or enamel during the night will have to slog through a gooey jungle. And this thickened night spit has another superpower. It slows down enzymatic activity. That's right, your own saliva chooses to become less chemically active overnight. It's like flipping a do not disturb sign on your tongue. This helps prevent unnecessary breakdown of tissues, sugars, or food particles that might otherwise over-ferment and lead to decay. But let's not pretend it's perfect. You still need to do your part. If you snack right before bed, especially sugary or acidic foods, your saliva will struggle. Its flow is too slow to neutralize properly, and your pH will likely dip below 5.5. That's demineralization territory. And in a dry, motionless sleep mouth, bacteria throw a party. Which brings us to one final piece of the puzzle: sleep position. You might think sleeping on your back, mouth closed, is just for vampires and yoga instructors, but it's actually the most saliva-friendly posture. Mouth breathers, on the other hand, expose their oral cavity to overnight dryness, which cuts saliva's protective ability nearly in half. It's not just snoring, it's strategic erosion. Fun fact, there's an ongoing scholarly debate about whether humans evolved to swallow in their sleep or if it's a learned behavior. Some sleep scientists argue that nocturnal swallowing is mostly reflexive and happens just often enough to prevent drool buildup, while others believe it's more of a semi-conscious act influenced by how restful your sleep cycle is. Either way, your saliva doesn't stop. It pulses subtly, invisibly, crucially. So here you are, lights low, screens dimming. Maybe the fan hums nearby, or the room holds that warm, quiet silence before sleep really descends. Your body is moving towards stasis, but your saliva is still at work. Thicker now, slower, almost meditative. Like a silk curtain slowly falling over everything inside your mouth. This is when your acquired pellicle yes, that superhero shield, begins its final crucial task: remineralization. Overnight, as acids ebb and oral activity ceases, your saliva delivers calcium, phosphate, and trace fluoride back into enamel microfissures. It's not a full repair job, but it's like a night crew patching potholes on a highway before the morning rush. And if you've taken good care of your mouth, brushed thoroughly, flossed generously, skipped the caramel popcorn, then this final act is beautifully efficient. Your teeth wake up stronger than they were the night before. It's a process that takes hours, and you never even notice. Your mouth won't move much tonight. Maybe a swallow here and there, maybe a gentle breath or a sleepy sob, but behind closed lips, saliva becomes a silent guardian, holding the line until morning light filters back in. And now, we slow. The day has gone. It's noise, it's flashing screens, it's caffeinated hustle all behind you now. What remains is the quiet certainty of your breath, the softness of your pillow, and the quiet, unseen labor of the body keeping watch while you drift. Your mouth is calm, your jaw relaxes. That warm feeling behind your cheeks, that's your saliva still working, gently moisturizing, defending, restoring. Each tooth held in a protective veil, each gum line cushioned like a shoreline under moonlight waves. There's nothing for you to do. The rhythm has already begun. In this silence, imagine your body folding itself deeper into rest, shoulders lowering, pulse slowing. The gentle ease of saliva continuing its vigil without your help. It doesn't need direction, it knows the schedule. It has its orders. You breathe in slowly and out even slower. The night leans in, the air cools just slightly. The hum of your surroundings blurs into a soft background wash. No more alarms, no decisions, no tasks, only you. A quiet room, and the knowledge that even now healing is happening. At the smallest scale, in the shadows of your cells, your body, mouth included, is already preparing you for the moment you'll rise again. So go ahead, let go of the day. Close your eyes, you have done enough, saliva's got this.